surprising how many people come into the shop and know what it is and know that it was yours.
Yeah, well, this is the Lotus Sport. The model was the 110, even though it doesn't say that on there. And they were retailed in the US by Nitro, and I used to have a giant Nitro sticker on here. So yeah, at the time it was the spin-off production version of the Lotus Sport bike that Chris Boardman used to win a gold medal in the Pursuit in '92 Olympic Games in Barcelona. And that bike was a little more radical than this one. It actually only had one fork leg and one chainstay. For the production bike, they went with dual fork legs and dual chainstays. There were very few of these frames that made it imported. I don't know how many were manufactured in total. I don't think the number was pretty big. At the time, it was $2,999.99 in 1995, just for the frame and fork. It was insanely expensive back then. Yeah, I mean, it came with a seat post. What was cool about the frame, I mean, it had several cool features, obviously. The first of which is that it's just, the lines of it are unbelievable. You can see here they've had immaculate finish work, high polish sheen on the clear coat, and even the carbon underneath is just laid down immaculately. It was made by Einstellungen, which is a South African company. It's got some sort of Formula One roots. It's got an integrated seat mast here, which you can see you literally drilled holes in the side of it and then moved this slider up and down. So this is a spray painted Russian disc, and anyone who is familiar with track racing will know what I mean when I say a Russian disc, but literally it's like a drum. It's actually a spun wheel. It's got tension in it like a spoked wheel. They were really noisy when you used them on the track and sounded cool. Because with all this carbon and then the wheel on there, every time you shifted on the road, it was like there was a lot of noise going on. So they were probably some sort of product of some weird cold wear company that went out of business, because all the hub parts and axle parts are all machined out of Thai. So it's pretty lightweight, not super stiff, probably pretty aero. It was a triangular shaped disc, not a lens shaped disc. And before they were painted, they looked like they're Kevlar colored, but the Kevlar would age, so it was like this dark brown, and they had 666 painted on them with like these crazy arrows. No idea what that meant. The dropouts are interchangeable, so you use the same frame for road and track, and when you take these dropouts off, there's bolts on the inside here, and then you put the other dropout on, and it changes to road width, and then it's got a derailleur hanger on there, and then it had internal cable routing. So I would switch the bike back and forth between track and road as needed. And I never ran a front derailleur on it, even though it has the hanger still here. I just ran it without a front derailleur, and back then that worked. I didn't even have any chain throwing Bradley Wiggins incidents or anything ever. But this is a Look Ergo stem that I used to get low enough, and this is a bar that I used at times with the Lotus. It's a custom-made Vision Tech. They were made a little narrower than normal. These are 38 centimeter outside to outside. And this stem section was probably a little longer than ideal for me for when I used it. I used that not for the hour record, but for TTs on the road when I use this sometimes. And this is a Mavic crankset that I filed the edges down on and painted, had painted by someone. I remember it cornering well and being fast. I remember the sensation of speed on it. It's not the lightest bike out there. Now you've got so many aero bike options. It's a debate about which one's faster in which condition or which yaw angle, which one's lighter. There are a lot of really good fast aero bikes on the market these days, but they're all within this much of each other. Back then, the next closest thing was a round tube time trial bike, or a bike made with true temper. They had that aero tube set with a curved seat tube, the S-shaped seat tube, and the slightly aero down tube. Eons ahead of almost everything else until '96, when the GT Superbike came out. And those were close. Even the aluminum tubed models, the first generation, you couldn't buy. They were for national team only. But this is what's known as sort of a Z-shaped frame. So shaped like this, right? So then Chris Boardman went on to set the world hour record, eventually rode an astounding 56.375K in 1 hour in Manchester. He set that record on this bike. I can honestly say there aren't many bikes that I have a very emotional attachment to. To me, I regard a bike as a tool that I use. It's a tool in my tool shed, and I take it out and use it. And there aren't very many bikes that I've had that I've really had an emotional attachment to. But this one, I think, is a special time in my racing, because it was sort of a period in my racing, I guess you could call it a career, where I felt like I rose to the best of my own abilities. And this bike kind of helped me do that, whether or not it was because I had a faster bike than a lot of other guys, or whether that speed, I think, also inspired the best out of me, you know? Because you're out there on this super fast bike, you don't want to look like a jackass and get beat, right? So in a way, it helped me really dig deep as an athlete, and I enjoyed the technical aspect of it. That's why I love cycling. It's both machine and man mesh together, you know. And now, fast forward to 2014, and you know, I've spent 25 years racing my bike and kind of being a dork-minded bike racer, reading books and looking at scientific literature as much as a bike racer can, and now I've been really fortunate to apply that in different aspects of my profession. So I'm a bike fitter, I have an office in Boulder, Colorado that I share with Panache Cyclewear. I'm also a coach, and this year I had the opportunity to work with the Garmin Sharp cycling team as part of their sports science department. Looked at power files, did fat calipers, all those other sports science things. So I traveled to all 3 Grand Tours and worked with them, worked with their fit in concert with Retool, and also did some coaching with the guys. JV and I really started the team together in 2003, and it grew into Garmin Sharp today. But I got to ride and work with all these guys, so it's great. It was a really, really great experience this year to work with the team, but now I'm back in Boulder and do bike fitting here as well, and I was trained by Steve Hogg in Sydney, Australia. I was there for almost a month, being mentored by him. I feel really fortunate to still be involved in the sport of cycling. I'm just a hopeless bike dork ever since my first race when I was 15. And you know, cycling is my professional life, so I feel very fortunate to still be involved in the sport in a lot of ways.